All the major unions of health workers under the umbrella of the Joint Health Sector Unions Public are facing imminent shutdown. Oil prices rose on Wednesday in spite of a rise in U.S. crude inventories, with the market heading for its largest third-quarter gain. Chinese Foreign Minister told U.S. Vice President that good preparations should be made to ensure President Trump's visit is a success. Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer will set aside their long-time rivalry when they play for Europe against the rest of the world. Good and welcome to African Broadcasting Network News. I'm Chinyere Mwabo. Now the news in details. Federal government has expressed regret over the reported death of some workers of the defunct Nigerian Airways, occasioned by the delay in the payment of their entitlements. The defunct national carrier was liquidated by former President Olusegun Obasanjo regime in 2005, and since then the workers had had series of protests over their unpaid entitlements. The Minister of State for Aviation, Senator Hadi Sirika, said after the meeting of the Federal Executive Council (FEC), presided over by the Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, that 45 billion had been to settle the ex-workers' entitlements. The minister disclosed that the council also approved the procurement of operational vehicles for Nigeria Port Authority (NPA) in the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency (NIMASA). Sirika said he had briefed the council on the certification of the Murtala Muhammad International Airport, Lagos, and the Nigerian Meteorological Agency (NIMET). According to him, the certification is a huge step towards security and safety in the aviation sector, and that the airport was first international airport in Nigeria to meet International Civil Aviation Organization (ICAO) requirements and NCAA regulations. On aviation workers' opposition to the concession of some of the nation's airports, the minister assured that the process would be transparently carried out and the workers would be fully engaged in the process. The Air Transport Service Senior Staff Association and the National Union of Air Transport Employees have vowed to resist the plan, saying, if necessary, the workers would mobilize and buy over the airports themselves. The minister noted that government would not be able to fund infrastructure in the aviation sector. As such, it will continue to partner with the private sector in financing such facilities in the sector. Sirika disclosed that the concessions of airports had since been approved by the President Muhammadu Buhari, as well as the Federal Executive Council, and the Council had approved the hosting of International Civil Aviation Organization (ICAO) World Aviation Conference to be held between November 20 and 22. Public hospitals nationwide are facing imminent shutdown as all the major unions of health workers under the umbrella of the Joint Health Sector Unions, JOHESU, yesterday embarked on indefinite strike. Joint Health Sector Unions, JOHESU, and National Association of Allied Health Professionals, NUAHP, have threatened to shut down operations in public hospitals due to the prolonged delay by the federal government in meeting their demands dating back to 2012. Comprising unions of nurses, laboratory scientists, physiotherapists, amongst others, that make up about 95% of health workers and care providers in the health sector, JOHESU had earlier issued a 7-day ultimatum and declared a nationwide industrial action that it tagged Operation Alligator Bite. Among the demands are revamp of infrastructure in the tertiary health institutions, report of the Inter-Ministerial Subcommittee on Critical Matters in the Health Sector, and professional autonomy, appointment of consultants and payment of specialist allowance, and implementation of the National Health Act, among others. Prior to the strike declaration, Joe Hesso and the Assembly of Healthcare Professionals Association, AHPA, had urged the Senate President, Dr. Bukola Saraki, and Speaker of the House of Representatives, Yakubu Dogara, to wade into the lingering crisis. And on business, oil prices rose on Wednesday in spite of a rise in U.S. crude inventories, with the market heading for its largest third-quarter gain in 13 years after the Iraqi oil minister said OPEC and its partners were considering extending or deepening output cuts. Brent crude futures rose to $56.20 a barrel by 12:19 p.m., while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures gained 91 cents or 1.8% to $50.39. Crude prices were on course for a rise for nearly 16% this quarter, which would make this year's performance the strongest for the third quarter since 2004. U.S. crude oil stockpiles jumped last week as imports and production increased, the U.S. Energy Information Administration said, as operations resumed from the impact of Hurricane Harvey, which hit the Gulf Coast on August 25. Crude inventories rose for a third straight week, building by 4.6 million barrels, about 1 million more barrels than forecast. On Friday, the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and other producers will meet in Vienna to discuss the progress of their deal to limit output. Gold fell 265 rupees to 29,509 rupees per 10 grams at the futures trades as participants reduced their positions, largely in line with a weak trend overseas. Profit booking at existing levels also weighed on the yellow metal. At the multi-commodity exchange, gold for delivery in October was trading lower by 265 rupees or 0.89% at 29,509 rupees per 10 grams in a business turnover of 1,311 lots. The metal for delivery in 5-month December lost 263 rupees or 0.88% to 29,673 rupees per 10 grams in 112 lots. Market analysts attributed the slump in yellow metal prices to a weak trend overseas as a strong U.S. dollar curbed the demand for the precious metals considered as a safe haven investment. Globally, gold was down 0.21% at $1,297.80 an ounce in Singapore after dropping to lowest since late August at $1,295.65, its lowest since late August. That's it on our business news. Let's join Faith for some African stories.
Thank you, Chinyere. President Uhuru Kenyatta's lawyer are seeking to overturn the Supreme Court ruling that nullified his re-election on August 8. According to reports, the lawyers led by Fred Ngatia burned the midnight oil to look at the full judgment that was issued on Wednesday as they were not satisfied with the majority judgment read by CJ David Maraga. DCJ Philomena Winlow and Justice Isaac Lenola also read the majority judgment, while Justice Smokin Wanjala missed the session as he traveled out of the country. Ngatia had asked the judges to issue them with the soft copies of the judgments to go over through the night, which the court agreed. Uhuru's team is said to be preparing to use the dissenting opinions by judges Njoku Nduku and Jackton Owang to build their case. The two argue that there was no basis to nullify the election as the opposition could not prove its case against the IEBC. Meanwhile, Supreme Court's judges had absolved President Uhuru Kenyatta from any blame in the August 8th general election as they gave their reasons for annulling last month's presidential vote results. Although Chief Justice David Maraga, his deputy Philomena Winlow said Justice Smokin Wanjala and Isaac Lenola, who gave a majority statement, ruled that the Electoral Commission committed irregularities to warrant nullification of Uhuru's win. They did not find any misconduct on the part of the president. South Sudan's President Salva Kiir Mayardit is scheduled to travel to Sudanese capital, Khartoum, next week. The president will hold talk with his Sudanese counterpart, Omar al-Bashir, to discuss outstanding issues between the two countries. The presidential advisor on security affairs, Todd Gatlock, said President Kiir's visit to Khartoum will focus on the economic cooperation between the two countries, besides the outstanding issues. A high-level delegation included the presidential advisor on security affairs, Todd Goodluck, finance minister, Stephen Dew, petroleum minister, Ezekiel Lowell, and Minister of Commerce Moses Hassan arrived in Khartoum on Tuesday ahead of Kiir's visit. Sudan's Minister of Investment Mubarak Al-Fadil said in a press statement that the visit came after two consultations between the two sides on how to develop economic and trade relations between the two countries. South Korea has approved aid package for North Korea in a humanitarian gestures at odds with calls by Japan. This and more after the break. Welcome back. South Korea has approved an $8 million aid package for North Korea in a humanitarian gesture at odds with calls by Japan and the U.S. for unwavering economic and diplomatic pressure on Pyongyang. The Unification of Ministries said about $4.5 million of nutrition-rich supplies will be distributed to children and pregnant women through the United Nations World Food Programme, and $3.5 million will go on to UNICEF to fund vaccinations and treatment of diarrhea, acute respiratory diseases, and malnutrition. The ministry, which oversees cross-border relations, said humanitarian aid to impoverished North Korea should remain unaffected by rising political tensions on the peninsula. The ministry said the aid package did not include cash payments and that there was realistically no possibility that it could be of any use to the North Korean military. The decision is a break with the hardline policy on aid pursued by Seoul since the start of the last year. It also risks causing a rift with the US and Japan, which regard engagement as a concession to North Korea while it accelerates its nuclear weapons and ballistic missile programs. The Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe reportedly asked the South Korean President Moon Jae-in to reconsider the timing of the package. Japan's government spokesman Yoshihide Suga said it could undermine the international effort to put pressure on North Korea. An estimated 18 million of North Korea's 25 million people required assistance due to food shortages and malnutrition, according to the United Nations. The World Health Organization estimates the mortality rate among the North Korean children aged 5 and under at 25 per 1,000 compared with 3 in every 1,000 in South Korea. Moon, Abe, and Donald Trump are due to discuss the North Korean crisis on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly later on Thursday. One of the Marine Le Pen's key aides said he is leaving the Front National, raising the prospect of a split in the anti-immigration and Eurosceptic parties' ranks. The vice president of the FN, Florian Philippot, said that he had looked increasingly likely amid rising tensions with the party's leader, Le Pen. Philippot, who had earlier had his responsibilities for strategy and communications removed by Le Pen, said he did not like being sidelined. Philippot is seen as the champion of the FN's opposition to the euro and pledged to leave the currency, one of the policies believed to have badly damaged Le Pen in the presidential election in May, which she was beaten by Emmanuel Macron. The party, which came third in the parliamentary election in June, is to hold a congress in early 2018, where internal conflicts are likely to come to a head. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi told U.S. Vice President Mike Pence that good preparation should be made by China and the United States to ensure that U.S. President Donald Trump's visit to China later this year is a success. Trump will likely visit China in November as part of a trip that would take him to an Asian summit in the Philippines and an APEC summit in Vietnam. Wang Yi said close communications between Xi and Trump have meant a smooth transition and a good start in China's relationship with the United States under the new administration. Wang told Pence on the sidelines of the annual general debates of the United Nations General Assembly on Wednesday that the stable and healthy relationship between the two countries is good for both countries and the international community. The two sides launched a 100-day economic plan at that meeting, including some industry-specific announcements such as the resumption of American beef sales in China. There has been since limited progress on trade relations, especially after Trump began to launch trade investigations into Chinese practices via the World Trade Organization. China's relationship with the United States has been strained by the Trump administration's criticism of China's trade practices and by demands that Beijing do more to pressure North Korea to halt its nuclear weapon and missile programs. China says it is already doing all it can to pressure North Korea and that those countries directly involved in the standoff on the peninsula should take responsibility for resolving tension. And that's it on World News today. Let's join Hannah for some sports stories.
Thanks, Faith, and on Sport News. German football legend Lothar Matthaus believes African teams regularly fail to perform on the big stage because every player in the squad wants to be the hero. Matthaus said players should embrace teamwork and selflessness to succeed with their national teams. Beside Nigeria and Cameroon triumph at the Olympics in 1996 and 2000 respectively, African teams have struggled to make an impact in international tournaments. Matthaus urged local coaches to embrace the culture of discipline and motivation to succeed in their careers. Among those who attended the coaching training are 2015 World Javelin champion Julius Yaga and former Harbin Stars custodian Mohamed Abbas. The ex-Germany captain and 1990 World Cup winner, who was voted as the world's best player in 1991, also shared an hour-long on-the-field coaching tips with dozens of players affiliated to the Marseille under-14, under-16 and women football teams. Still on sports, Santos fans were locked inside their own stadium for 20 minutes following violence from supporters after their elimination from the Copa Libertadores. Fans of the Brazilian club battled outside the Villa Belmiro ground after Ecuadorian side Barcelona won new win, forcing police to lock the gates and supporters inside the stadium tried to get into the Santos dressing room. Barcelona won the two-leg tie 2-1 after last week's 1-1 draw in Ecuador. Jonathan Alves scored the crucial goal for Barcelona in the 68th minute, but was sent off 2 minutes later and his team was reduced to 9 men in the final minutes when Gabriel Marquez was dismissed. The Ecuador outfit faced another Brazilian side, Grêmio, in the semi-finals of the South American equivalent of the Champions League next month. On tennis, Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer will set aside their long-term rivalry when they play for Europe against the rest of the world in the inaugural Laval Cup tournament, which starts on Friday. Team Hero, featuring the world's top 2 players, are overwhelming favorites to win the 3-day tournament, which is named after Australian great Rod Laval, with a squad boasting a combined 36 Grand Slam titles against 1 for Team World. The team are captained by Bjorn Borg and John McEnroe, whose one rivalry starts in the 1970s featured a contrast in the temperament and style. World number 2 Federer played down the impact of another event, saying matches over a short period were manageable and gave players on the 2 teams the chance to build camaraderie. Team Hero also includes German Alexander Zverev, Croatian Marin Cilic, Australian Dominic Thiem, and Czech Tomasz Berdych. Team World features American Sam Querrey, Jack Sock, John Isner, and Francis Talbot, plus Australian Nick Gregos and Canadian Denis Shapovalov. The tournament, which will rotate between Europe and the rest of the world each year, features 3 singles and 1 doubles match each day. A win is worth 1 point on Friday, 2 on Saturday, and 3 on Sunday. In a bid to keep the pace humming, the indoor hard-court matches at Prague O2 Arena will be best of 3 sets with a 10-point tea break deciding the final set. With no player featuring in singles more than twice during the first 2 days, Nadal and Federer could see themselves on the same side of the net in mouth-watering doubles pairing. Flackerson O'Brien said British and Irish Lions could have whitewashed world champions New Zealand 3-0 had they been better coached as the Irishman started all 3 tests of the 1-1 draw series. The 30-year-old said the midfield pairing of Johnny Sexton and Owen Farrell were running their attack shape by the end of the tour. As well as assisting Gatland on the Lions tour, Howley works under the New Zealander in the Wales set-up. Scotland head coach Gregor Townsend and Glasgow assistant Johnson O'Halloran both turned down invitation to be part of Gatland Lions staff, and O'Brien, who also toured in 2013, says the best coaches must be recruited in 4 years' time. Speaking immediately after the drawn 3rd test in July, Gatland said given schedule was how tough the tour was and that for them to get a draw in New Zealand is something they should be proud of. That's it on our sport news for today. Let's join Chinwe Wabo for the top story that made the headlines. I am Anna Olitayo.
Thanks, Hannah. And on our top stories, all the major unions of health workers under the umbrella of the Joint Health Sector Unions Public are facing imminent shutdown. Oil prices rose on Wednesday in spite of a rise in U.S. crude inventories, with the market heading for its largest third-quarter gain. Chinese foreign minister told U.S. Vice President that good preparations should be made to ensure President Trump's visit a success. Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer will set aside their long-time rivalry when they play for Europe against the rest of the world. Thanks for watching. You can follow us on our social media platform by visiting our website at www.abnchannel.net. Follow us on Twitter at ABN Channel. Like us on Facebook at ABN TV. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel, African Broadcasting Network. I am Chinyere Nwabo. Bye for now.